Hey guys, it is Neo here, and today we're going to be reading another iconic creepypasta today. It is another one that is like it's a lost episode creepypasta. Another one of those. This one is a more iconic one though. This is Red Mist, aka Squidward's, you know. Anyway, let's get off, okay? Let's do it. I just want to say, I just want, or actually, fuck. Let me restart that. I just want to start off by saying, if you want an answer at the end, prepare to be disappointed. There isn't one. I was an intern at Nickelodeon Studios in the year 2005. For my degree in animation, I wasn't paid, of course. Most internships aren't, but it did have a perk beyond education. To adults, it might not seem like a big one, but it would to most kids at the time, they would go crazy about it over it. Since I worked directly with the editors and animators, I got to view the new episodes daily before they aired. I'll get right to them, I'll get right to it without giving too many unnecessary details. They had recently made the SpongeBob movie, and the entire staff was somewhat sapped of creativity, so it took them longer to start up the season. But the delay lasted longer for more upsetting reasons. There was a problem with the season 4 premiere that set everyone back several months. Me and two other interns in the editing room, along with the lead animators and the sound editors for the final cut of an episode, received a copy that was supposed to be Fear of a Krabby Patty, and gathered around the screen to watch. Now, given that the final cut isn't final yet, animators often pick up a mock title card at the beginning. It's a sort of inside joke for us, with a phony, oftentimes lewd titles being used, such as "How Sex Doesn't Work." What? Instead of "Rockabye Bivalve," in which SpongeBob and Patrick adopt a scallop. Nothing particularly funny, just work-related chuckles. So when we saw the title card "Squidward's Suicide," we didn't think of it more as than a morbid joke. One of the other interns did a small throat laugh at it. The episode started with the happy-go-lucky music playing as normal. Story began with Squidward practicing his clarinet, hitting a few sour notes like usual. We hear SpongeBob laughing outside. Squidward stops yelling at him to keep it down, as he has a concert that night and needs to practice. SpongeBob says yes and goes to see Sandy with Patrick. The bubble splash screen comes up, and we see the ending of Squidward's concert. This is when things begin to seem off. While playing, a few frames repeat themselves, but the sound doesn't. It's supposed to be synced with the animation, so yes, that's not common, but when Squidward stops playing and the sound finishes, as if the skip never happened. There was a slight murmuring in the crowd before they began to boo at him. Not the normal cartoon booing that is common in the show. Mind you, you could really hear the malice in it. Squidward's is in full frame and looks visibly afraid. The shot goes to the crowd, with SpongeBob in center frame. He too is booing, which is very much unlike him. That isn't the oddest thing, though. What's odd is that everyone has hyper-realistic eyes. Man, where have I heard that word before? But anyway. All very detailed and clearly not shots of real people's eyes. But a bit more CGI. The pupils were red. Some of us looked at each other, obviously confused, since we weren't the writers and we didn't question its appeal to children yet. The shot goes to Squidward sitting at the edge of his bed, looking very forlorn. At the view of his porthole window of a night sky. It isn't very long after the concert. The unsettling part is that at this point there is no sound, literally zero sound. Not even feedback from the speakers in the room. It is as if the speakers were turned off, and their statues showed them working perfectly. Squidward just sits there in the silence, blinking for about 30 seconds, then starts to sob softly, putting his tentacles, over his eyes, and cries quietly for a full minute. All the while, a sound in the background was gradually growing from nothing to be barely audible. It sounds like a slight breeze through a forest. The screen begins to zoom on his face by slowly. I mean, it's only noticeable if you look at the shots for 10 seconds apart, side by side. The sobbing gets louder and more full of hurt and anger. The screen then twitches a little bit, as if it twists on itself for a split second, before going back to normal. The wind through the the wind through the trees sound gets louder and more severe, as if a storm is brewing. The eerie part is that the sound and Squidward's sobbing sounded real. It sounded like it wasn't coming from the speakers, but the speakers themselves were holes that the sound was traveling through from the other side. As good as good a sound as the studio likes to have, they don't have the equipment to be able to produce the audio of that quantity or quality. Below the sound and wind sobbing, a very faintly audible, something sounded like laughing. It came at odd intervals and never lasted more than a second. So if you had a hard time pinning it, we watched this episode twice. So pardon me if things sound too specific, but I think I've had time to think about them. After 30 seconds of this screen blurred and twitched violently, and something flashed over it, as if a single frame was replaced. The lead animation editor was around frame by frame, and what we saw was horrible. It was a photo of a dead child. He couldn't have been more than 6. His face was mangled and bloody, and his eye dangling over it popped. He was, I'm not gonna, say the rest of this part, or I'm not gonna say this one part. His stomach was crudely cut open, and entrails sprayed out beside him. He was laying on some pavement, which was probably a road. The most upsetting part was there was a shadow of the photographer, but no crime tape, no evidence tags or markers. By the angle, it was completely cut off, um, completely off for a shot designed to be evidence. It would seem that they were the person responsible for the child's death. We were, of course, mortified, but pressed on, hoping that this was some sick joke. Scream flipped back to Squidward, still sobbing louder than before. Half of his body in the frame. There was now what appeared to be blood running down his face. The blood was also done in a hyper-realistic style. Okay, man. Looking as if you were to get your fingers if you touched the screen. It looking like as if you get it on your fingers if you touch the screen. God, I'm sorry, guys. The wind sounded now as if it were that of a gale blowing through a forest. There was even snapping sounds like branches laughing. Baritone. A deep baritone lasted for longer intervals and came more frequently. About 20 seconds, the screen twisted again and showed a single frame photo. Oh, god damn it. The editor was reluctant to go back. We all were, but he knew we had to. This time, the photo appeared to be one of a little girl, no older than the first child, laying on her stomach. She was laying on her stomach, her barrett's in a pool of blood. Her eye looked like it was damaged, similar as the boy. Her entrails were piled on top of another crude cut along her back. Again, the body was on a street, and the photographer's shadow was visible. Very similar in size and shape to the first. We had to choke back vomit. One intern, only a female in the room, ran out, and the show resumed. About 5 seconds after this photo played, Squidward went silent. All sound cut out, like it did when the scene started. But his tentacles down, his eyes were now done in hyperrealism, like the others were at the beginning of the episode. They were bleeding, almost bloodshot and pulsating. He just stared at the screen as if watching the viewer for about 10 seconds. He started sobbing, this time not covering his eyes. The sound was piercing and loud. The most fear-inducing thing of all was that was that his sobbing was mixed with screams. Tears and blood were dripping down his face at a heavy rate. The wind sound came back, and so did the deep-voiced laughing. This time was with a still photo that lasted for about a good 5 frames. The animator was able to stop it on the 4th and backed up this time. The photo was a boy about the same age. The scene was different. His entrails being pulled from his stomach, on by a large hand, and the right eye popped, blood trickling down it. The animator proceeded. The next frame was different. We couldn't tell how, but he continued to the next image. It was the same thing. We wanted to go back at first and played them quicker, and I lost it. I vomited on the floor. The animation, I played them quicker. I lost it. I vomited on the floor. The animation and sound editors were gasping at the screen. The 5 frames were not different. Were not 5 different photos. They were the frames from a video. We saw the hand slowly lift guts out of the. We saw the kid's eyes focus on it. We even saw the 2 frames of the kid beginning to blink. Oh my god, bro. The lead sound editor told us to stop, and he had to call in the creator to see this. Mr. Hillenberg arrived within about 15 minutes. He was confused as to why he had been called down. So the editor had just continued the episode. Once the next few frames were shown, all screaming and sound stopped. Squidward was just staring at the viewer. His face was at full frame for 3 seconds. The shot quickly panned out to that deep voice that said, "Do it!" And we saw the shotgun on Squidward's hands. He immediately puts the gun in his mouth and pulls the trigger. Realistic blood and brain matter splatters on the wall behind him and his bed, and he flies back with force. The last 5 seconds of the episode show his body on the bed. It's on its side, one eye dangling from what was left of the head above the floor, staring blankly at it. Then the episode ends. Mr. Hillenberg was obviously angry at this. He demanded to know what the hell was going on, and most people left the room at this point. So there were just a handful of us left to watch it. Viewing the episode twice served to imprint the entirety of it in my mind, causing me horrible nightmares. I'm sorry I stayed. The only theory we could think of was that the file had been edited by someone in a chain from the drawing studio here. At CTO was called to find out when it happened. Analysis on the file did show it was mixed with new material. However, the timestamp of the change was a mere 24 seconds before we began viewing it. All equipment involved was examined for foreign software as well as glitches, such as if the timestamp was showing us at the wrong time. But everything checked out fine. We didn't know what happened, and to this day, nobody does. There was an investigation due to the nature of the photos, but nothing came of it. No child was identified, and no clues were gathered from the data involved, nor physical clues from the photos. I never believed in an unexplainable phenomena before, but now I've had something happen to me, and I can't prove anything about it beyond and it's dotto evidence. I don't know how to say that word. I think twice about things. And that was the story. This was Red Mist. Now I want to review the story. Why did we have to, I had to cut some parts out. I had to skip some parts of when we got to the scenes of them showing the bodies. I had to skip some parts out because there was some if you guys read the original, if you guys want to see the original story, if you want to hear a reading of it that isn't mine, you can go ahead and look at one up on YouTube. It's pretty easy to find a reading of this story. But anyway, as for my review, this story, it was actually kind of it made me shake a little bit, honestly. This one was a really good one, honestly. I remember listening to it back when I was really young. I was kind of scared of it. I wasn't really that scared of it, obviously, but Oh my god, though. Like now that I read it for myself, yeah, this is a really yeah. So I'm just gonna say this: I feel like the story is good. I like the retake that Vibing Leaf did of it. Um, yeah, I think this story really there's like Mouse AVI. There's a lot of retakes of this story. Obviously, I don't think you're gonna be surprised at that, but yeah. I don't know which iconic creepypasta I might do next. Maybe Max and Ruby 004 or so now I think I've been thinking about this one for a little bit. I might read Sonic.exe round 2. Now, I will do it probably just to make fun of it a little bit during the story. So, yeah, that was my video on reading Red Mist. Hope you guys like and subscribe. I'm out of here. Peace.